The real risk with AI, a superintelligent AI will be extremely good at accomplishing its goals. If those goals aren't aligned with ours, we're in trouble.
I don't think you'll agree to call it that. It's very clearly a religion to me. That's not an attack.
I actually would love, I don't take that as an attack, but I would love to hear what you mean by that.
The book of Revelation and the biblical worldview has to say. I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. We are about to witness the birth of a new kind of religion. In the next few years, or perhaps even months, we will see the emergence of sects devoted to the worship of artificial intelligence. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain.
Sam Altman gets pressed on, is AI, ChatGPT, becoming a religion? And then John Lennox shares what in the world is going on and his thoughts on ChatGPT and AI. Can we survive AI? Is it becoming a new religion? This is also fascinating stuff, so buckle up, guys. This one is wild. And before we get started, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I know we can do it with your help. So thank you so much for all the love and support. It means the world. Let's get into it.
Like, what is right or wrong according to ChatGPT?
Do you want me to answer that one first?
I would.
Question.
Yeah.
So on that one, someone said something early on in ChatGPT when that really has stuck with me, which is one person at a lunch table said something like, you know, we're trying to train this to be like a human, like we're trying to learn like a human does and read these books and whatever. And then another person said, no, we're really like training this to be like the collective of all of humanity. We're reading everything. You know, we're trying to learn everything. We're trying to see all these perspectives. And if we do our job right, all of humanity, good, bad, a very diverse set of perspectives, some things that we'll feel really good about, some things that we'll feel bad about, that's all in there. Like, this is learning the kind of collective experience, knowledge, learnings of humanity. Now, the base model gets trained that way, but then we do have to align it to behave one way or another and just say, you know, I will answer this question, I won't answer this question. And we have this thing called the model spec where we try to say, you know, here are the rules we'd like the model to follow. It may screw up, but you could at least tell if it's doing something you don't like, is that a bug or is that intended? And we have a debate process with the world to get input on that spec. We give people a lot of freedom and customization within that. There are, absolute bounds that we draw, but then there's a default of, if you don't say anything, how should the model behave? What should it do? How should it answer moral questions? How should it refuse to do something? What should it do? And this is a really hard problem. That we have a lot of users now, and they come from very different life perspectives and what they want. But on the whole, I have been pleasantly surprised with the model's ability to learn and apply a moral framework.
But what moral framework? I mean, the sum total of like world literature or philosophy is at war with itself. Like the Marquis de Sade is, like nothing in common with the Gospel of John. Right. So like, how do you decide which is superior?
That's why we wrote this like model spec of here's how we're going to handle these cases.
Right, but what criteria did you use to decide what the model is? Like who decided that? Who did you consult? Like why is the Gospel of John better than the Marquis de Sade?
Because what if it decides that the Gospel of John is bad and it is evil and people who love Jesus are bad? That's what's scary. And that's the world we can come into. And people are going to AI now for so many different things, and including spiritual enlightenment, which is wild.
Consulted like hundreds of moral philosophers, people who thought about like ethics of technology and systems. And at the end, we had to like make some decisions. The reason we try to write these down is because A, we won't get everything right. B, we need the input of the world. And we have found a lot of cases where there was an example of something that seemed to us like, a fairly clear decision of what to allow or not to allow, where users convinced us like, hey, by blocking this thing that you think is an easy decision to make, you are not allowing this other thing, which is important, and there's like a difficult trade-off there. In general, the attention so a principle that I normally like is to treat our adult users like adults, very strong guarantees on privacy, very strong guarantees on individual user freedom, and this is a tool we are building. You get to use it within very broad framework. Within a very broad framework. On the other hand, as this technology becomes more and more powerful, there are clear examples of where society has an interest that is in significant tension with user freedom. And we could start with an obvious one, like, should ChatGPT teach you how to make a bioweapon? Now, you might say, hey, I'm just really interested in biology, and I'm a biologist, and I want to, I'm not going to do anything bad with this. I just want to learn. And I could go read a bunch of books, but ChatGPT can teach me faster, and I want to learn how to, I want to learn about like novel virus synthesis or whatever. And maybe you do. Maybe you really don't want to like cause any harm. But I don't think it's in society's interest for ChatGPT to help people build bioweapons. And so that's a case.
Sure, that's an easy one though. There are a lot of tougher ones.
I did say start with an easy one.
Well, every decision is ultimately a moral decision, and we make them without even recognizing them as such. And this technology will be, in effect, making them for us.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I don't agree with it'll be making them for us, but it will have to.
It'll be influencing the decisions for sure. And because it'll be embedded in daily life. And so who made these decisions? Like who are the people who decided that one thing is better than another?
You mean like?
What are their names?
Which kind of decision?
The specs that you alluded to that create the framework that does attach a moral weight to worldviews and decisions, like, liberal democracy is better than Nazism or whatever. They seem obvious, and in my view are obvious, but are still moral decisions. So who made those calls? As a matter of principle, I don't like dox our team, but we have a model behavior team, and the people who want to... Well, it affects the world.
What I was going to say is the person I think you should hold accountable for those calls is me. Like, I'm a public face. Eventually, like, I'm the one that can overrule one of those decisions or our board.
Imagine. It is a good point, because at the end of the day, so many people go to ChatGPT for literal moral advice. What's good, what's not good, what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's bad, all those things. And what if it's feeding into these lies and people just believe and start to think that one people group are worse than the other people group? So keep watching this, because I'm going to be turning on John Lennox here in a little bit.
40 this spring.
I won't make every
It's pretty heavy. I mean, do you think and it's not an attack, but I wonder if you recognize sort of the importance.
How do you think we're doing on it?
I'm not sure. But I think these decisions will have, global consequences that we may not recognize at first. And so I just wonder, do you get into bed at night and think like the future of the world hangs on my judgment?
Look, I don't sleep that well at night. There's a lot of stuff that I feel a lot of weight on, but probably nothing more than the fact that every day hundreds of millions of people talk to our model. And I don't actually worry about us getting the big moral decisions wrong. Maybe we will get those wrong too. But what I lose most sleep over is the very small decisions we make about a way a model may behave slightly differently. But it's talking to hundreds of millions of people, so the net impact is big.
So, but I mean, all through history, like recorded history up until like 1945, people always deferred to what they conceived of as a higher power Hammurabi did this. Every moral code is written with reference to a higher power. There's never been anybody who's like, well, that kind of seems better than that. Everybody appeals to a higher power, and you said that you don't really believe that there's a higher power communicating with you, so I'm wondering, like, where did you get your moral framework?
That's crazy.
I mean, like everybody else, I think the environment I was brought up in probably is the biggest thing. Like my family, my community, my school, my religion, probably that.
Do you ever think, I think that's a very American answer, like everyone kind of feels that way, but in your specific case, since you said these decisions rest with you, that means that the milieu in which you grew up and the assumptions that you imbibed over years are going to be transmitted to the globe, to billions of people. That's like a big thing.
I want to be clear. I view myself more as like I think the world, like our user base, is going to approach the collective world as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I think what we should do is try to reflect the moral I don't want to say average, but the like collective moral view of that user base. There's plenty of things that ChatGPT allows that I personally would disagree with. But I don't like, obviously, I don't wake up and say, I'm gonna like impute my exact moral view and decide that like this is okay and that is not okay and this is a better view than this one. What I think ChatGPT should do is reflect that like weighted average or whatever of humanity's moral view, which will evolve over time. And we are here to like serve our users. We're here to serve people. This is like, this is a technological tool for people. And I don't mean that it's like my role to make the moral decisions, but I think it is my role to make sure that we are accurately reflecting the preferences of humanity, or for now of our user base and eventually of humanity.
Well, I mean, humanity's preferences are so different from the average middle American preference. So would you be comfortable with an AI that was like as against gay marriage as most Africans are?
That is so wild. But that's the reality. What if one person was controlling this, like the Antichrist, and was literally saying, this is how the world works, and people are going to it. 100 million people are going to AI, ChatGPT, and then asking this question. That is creepy. That is very possibly being demonic. That he could input his worldview to 100 million people. They can just accept it because they believe ChatGPT has all the answers.
I think individual users should be allowed to have a problem with gay people. And if that's their considered belief, I don't think the AI should tell them that they're wrong or immoral or dumb. I mean, it can, sort of say, hey, you want to think about it this other way, but like I probably have like a bunch of moral views that the average African would find really problematic as well, and I think I should still get to have them.
Right.
I think I probably have more comfort than you with like allowing a sort of space for people to have pretty different moral views, or at least I think in my role as like running ChatGPT, I have to do that.
So what will be the downside? I mean, I can see the upsides for sure.
Yeah.
Efficiency, medical diagnosis seems like it's going to be much more accurate. Fewer lawyers. Thank you very much for that. But what are the downsides that you worry about?
I think this is just like kind of how I'm wired. I always worry the most about the unknown unknowns. If it's a downside that we can really like be confident about and think about, we talked about one earlier, which is these models are getting very good at bio, and they could help us design biological weapons, engineer like another COVID-style pandemic. I worry about that, but because we worry about it, I think we and many other people in the industry are thinking hard about how to mitigate that. The unknown unknowns where, okay, there's a societal scale effect from a lot of people talking the same model at the same time. This is like a silly example, but it's one that struck me recently. LLMs like ours and our language model and others have a kind of certain style to them. They talk in a certain rhythm and they have a little bit unusual diction and maybe they overuse em dashes and whatever. And I noticed recently that real people have like picked that up. And it was an example for me of like, man, you have enough people talking to the same language model and it actually does cause a change in societal scale behavior.
You don't say.
And, did I think that ChatGPT was going to make people use way more em dashes in real life? Certainly not. It's not a big deal, but it's an example of where there can be these unknown unknowns of this is a brave new world.
That's crazy.
So you're saying, I think correctly and succinctly, that technology changes human behavior, of course, and changes our assumptions about the world and each other and all that. And a lot of this you can't predict, but considering that we know that, why shouldn't the internal moral framework of the technology be totally transparent? We prefer this to that. I mean, this is obviously a religion. I don't think you'll agree to call it that. It's very clearly a religion to me. That's not an attack.
I actually would love, I don't take that as an attack, but I would love to hear what you mean by that.
Well, it's something that we assume is more powerful than people.
Wow.
And to which we look for guidance. I mean, you're already seeing that on display. What's the right decision? I ask that question of whom? My closest friends, my wife, and God. And this is a technology that provides a more certain answer than any person can provide. So it's a religion. And the beauty of religions is they have a catechism that is transparent. I know what the religion stands for. Here's what it's for, here's what it's against. But in this case, I pressed, and I wasn't attacking you, sincerely, I was not attacking you, but I was trying to get to the heart of it. The beauty of a religion is it admits it's a religion, and it tells you what it stands for. The unsettling part of this technology, not just your company, but others, is that I don't know what it stands for, but it does stand for something. And unless it admits that and tells us what it stands for, then it guides us in a kind of stealthy way toward a conclusion we might not even know we're reaching. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, why not just throw it open and say, ChatGPT is for this, or we're for the terminally ill, but not for kids, or whatever. Like, why not just tell us?
I mean, the reason we write this long model spec, and the reason we keep expanding it over time, is so that you can see, here is how we intend for the model to behave. What used to happen before we had this is people would fairly say, I don't know what the model's even trying to do, and I don't know if this is a bug or the intended behavior.
Right.
Tell me what this long document of, tell me how you're gonna when you're gonna do this, and when you're gonna show me this, and when you're gonna say you won't do that. The reason we try to write this all out is I think people do need to know.
And so is there a place you can go to find out a hard answer to what your preferences as a company are, preferences that are being transmitted in a not entirely straightforward way to the globe? Like, where can you find out what the company stands for, what it prefers?
I mean, our model spec is the answer to that. Now, I think we will have to make it increasingly more detailed over time as people use this in different countries. There's different laws, whatever else. It will not work the same way for every user everywhere. I expect that document to get
That's crazy. That's wild, because people are following ChatGPT aimlessly, believing everything that it tells you, and we don't even know where it's taking us. That's what's scary. So John Lennox breaks this down and explains how we can live in a world with AI and all of the artificial intelligences that come, and can we survive? So let's get into it.
We're forced to live with AI because the same facial recognition that's used for picking out criminals in a crowd is being used to suppress minorities, in particular the minority Muslim population of Uyghurs in Xinjiang in northwest China. And that intensive surveillance is intrusive to a colossal extent, and is being exported all over China and possibly eventually to the West.
Wow. Autonomous
weapons we're familiar with, and also the threat to democracy from deep fakes. And Ken McCallum, who's the Director General of MI5 in the UK, says the fabric of society could be undermined by AIs impersonating real people, so that it would no longer be possible to distinguish truth from falsehood. Deepfake technology is a threat to democracy and could be harnessed by hostile states to sow confusion and disinformation at the next general election. And when we think of the existing AI, one of its leaders, Joshua Bendigo, wrote about the morality of AI systems. People need to understand that current AI and the AI we can foresee in the reasonable future does not and will not have a moral sense or moral understanding of what is right and what is wrong. And when we think about the question, what we can live with, my mind immediately goes back to two famous dystopias, George Orwell's 1984 and Huxley's Brave New World. And a brilliant analysis of those two books was given by Neil Postman, who said Orwell warns that we will be overcome by an externally imposed oppression. But in Huxley's vision, no big brother is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. People will come to love their oppression and to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. And at the present time, we are in a love-hate relationship with our technologies. Both things appear to be happening on the grand scale simultaneously.
That's exactly what Tucker Carlson was asking. Like, does it have a moral framework? And seems like Sam Altman doesn't really know. It doesn't have one, apparently. But that's scary.
And some time ago, the brilliant entomologist wrote this. E.O. Wilson, the real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology, and it's terrifically dangerous. Until we answer those huge questions of philosophy that the philosophers abandoned a couple of generations ago, where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? Rationally, we are on very thin ground. Those are the three big questions that the philosopher Immanuel Kant asked. E.O. Wilson is wrong, of course. There are many serious philosophers dealing with precisely those questions. Wow. Where do we come from? Who are we? And where are we going? And where we're going, in the opinion of some, is towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which involves building an AI system that equals or exceeds human capacities. In other words, constructing a superintelligence. So we're in the realm of transhumanism.
Dang.
Now, if that were simply a statement coming from the science fiction area, we would probably all ignore it. But this kind of thinking is part and parcel of some of the statements of the most brilliant scientists on our planet. One of them from this country is Lord Rees, the UK astronomer royal. He wrote, "We can have zero confidence that the dominant intelligences a few centuries hence will have any emotional resonance with us, even though they may have an algorithmic understanding of the way we behaved." So if we ask the question, can we live with AI, you will find a whole palette of scenarios, all of them coming from highly intelligent people. So here's a sample. Stephen Hawking, the late brilliant genius from Cambridge. The real risk with AI isn't malice, but competence. A superintelligent AI will be extremely good at accomplishing its goals. And if those goals aren't aligned with ours, we're in trouble. Eliezer Yudkowsky of the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, if somebody builds a too powerful AI under present conditions, I expect that every single member of the human species and all biological life on Earth dies shortly thereafter. And that kind of view, which is at one extreme, has led to pressure from the Center for AI Safety to mitigate the risk of extinction. And this, they write on their website, should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. But on the other hand, there are highly intelligent voices saying something very different. Jobst Landgrebe and Barry Smith wrote a book, Why Machines Will Never Rule the World, Artificial Intelligence Without Fear. And they argue that just as physics shows the impossibility of constructing a perpetual motion machine, so the mathematics of complex systems show that it is not possible, nor will it be, to engineer AGI machines, even at the cognitive level of a crow, and that therefore the singularity will never happen. I'm very sympathetic as a mathematician, actually, to that viewpoint, and it's supported by one of the most brilliant mathematicians on the planet who lives in this city, Sir Roger Penrose. So what some are saying, and this is the most famous scientific journal in the world, Nature, in June 2023, it's time to talk about the known risks of AI. Forget machine doomsday. What's needed is effective regulation to limit the societal harms artificial intelligence is already causing. And I emphasize that statement because I think it's one of the most important things for us to think about. Away from the hype and the apparent science fiction, we've already got so far that there are huge dangers to society. And here is Nir Isikovitz in the Scientific American not long ago. AI won't blow up the world, but the increasingly uncritical embrace of it in a variety of narrow contexts means the gradual erosion of some of humans' most important skills. Algorithms are already undermining people's capacity to make judgments, enjoy serendipitous encounters, and hone critical thinking. The human species will survive such losses. Can we live with it? He thinks so. But our way of existing will be impoverished in the process. So what's to be done? Here's Sam Altman again of OpenAI. Regulation will be critical and will take time to figure out. Although current generation AI tools aren't very scary, I think we are not that far away from potentially scary ones.
That's crazy that John Lennox is even exposing this, because there's this idea that the Antichrist could be coming from AI or some type of artificial intelligence. Because there's this verse in Revelations where it talks about there's this statue that is given life from the beast. And what do you think that sounds like in today? Like a robot, essentially, like some computer, some really crazy technology that is being close to being developed already. And it really makes you think, are we heading towards the end times? Are we in the end times now more than ever before? But let's continue.
Stuart Russell, who gave the Reef Lectures last year in Britain, a very famous pioneer in AI, he has several principles for living with AI. First of all, restrict an AI system's goals only to maximizing the realization of human goals. Secondly, keep the AI uncertain about what those goals are so that it must keep asking. Insist that the AI tries to understand the nature of those goals by constant observation of human behavior. And there is a plethora of rules being rolled out from various sources, because it's quite obvious that the regulation problem is related to the control problem. And we can't regulate what we can't control. And some people are very worried about it. Now, another brilliant scientist, a brilliant physicist who's involved in this, raises this question. Are we really in an unavoidable battle with an AI monster to stay alive? Listen to much of the debate, and you could be forgiven for thinking so. Physics professor at MIT, I think, and he has written a book called Life 3.0. And it's really a fascinating book, because what he does is project into the future the possible scenarios if we are to develop AGI, which in my and many other people's minds is highly questionable. And he has a whole range of possible scenarios. But the one he spends most time on, and it fascinated me when I read it, is the so-called Omega Project, in which a leader takes over the entire world so that there is a global government, an idea that has been suggested by many leaders in the past and is the aspiration of many leaders in the current world. This great controlling power gets a hold of the economy of the world, and it does it this way. With the excuse of fighting crime and terrorism and rescuing people suffering medical emergencies, everybody could be required to wear a security bracelet that combines the functionality of an Apple Watch with continuous uploading of position, health, status, and conversations overheard. Wow. Unauthorized attempts to remove or disable it would cause it to inject a lethal toxin into the forearm.
Dang.
Now, when I read that, it reminded me of a much more ancient scenario that occurs, believe it or not, in the book of Revelation, because it also talks about a future world government. And you know, my argument is very simple. If we're going to take seriously the kind of thing that people like Max Tegmark are saying about the future, I say, well, look, before you reject it, listen carefully to what the book of Revelation and the biblical worldview has to say. Now I'm going to plunge straight into this. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, a symbol for Satan, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? That is the wild monster from the sea, but there's another one, a wild monster from the earth. Then I saw another beast or wild thing rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. It deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived.
Oh, shoot.
And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain.
That's crazy. I literally mentioned that, and I have another video that I want to pull up that speaks about the same thing. That's crazy, John Lennox. John Lennox is ahead of his time. No one like him. He's amazing.
So it causes all to be marked on the right hand, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark that is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Beware of taking all of that simply as symbols, because as C.S. Lewis pointed out long ago, symbols are used to represent realities.
Wow.
And the reality that stands behind this, I reckon, is explicitly in plain text told us in 2 Thessalonians, where Paul writes this, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Now, Revelation is explicit that the number of the beast is the number of a human being.
Wow.
That is the terrifying thing about it. And here is Paul in plain text, no symbolism, telling us that there will arise a leader, a man of lawlessness, that is spiritual lawlessness. He opposes everything to do with God. He will be, of course, an extreme totalitarian dictator.
Wow.
And allows himself to be worshipped. Well, think and put those things together. AI in the future, creating a system of economic control that is individualized by a bracelet that can kill you. This is as near to that as it's possible to get.
They're doing that already in China. Not a bracelet that can kill you, as far as I know. I could be wrong, though. But economically kill you, socially kill you. That is creepy, guys. That is for sure.
And if you think of the notion of worship that's come up in all these contexts, the director of the Center for Professional and Applied Ethics in Montreal in Canada has written this recently. We are about to witness the birth of a new kind of religion,
No
In the
way.
next few years, or perhaps even months, we will see the emergence of sects devoted to the worship of artificial intelligence. It's already happening, by the way. For certain AI systems are beginning to exhibit the kind of capacities usually ascribed to deity, such as immortality, omniscience, and omnipresence. These super AIs have prayer-like connectivity via the internet, the oracle-like capacity of ChatGPT to answer virtually any question, produce life advice, and even scriptures almost instantaneously.
That's insane.
Nor do they have needs or desires like humans, only electricity.
Wow.
Now, it seems to me we need to do a lot more thinking around this kind of thing. It is so close to what some of the best thinkers on the planet are projecting for AGI. So now is the time to drop our fear of investigating the book of Revelation and having a serious look at what the Bible says is going to happen.
crazy.
Now, this sounds grim. There's no question about it. Can we live with it? Well, it's clear that some people will have to live with it. But that's not the end of the story. It is the end of the Omega Prometheus story. But the end of the biblical story is something much, much bigger and better. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will kill with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his coming.
That's exactly what I was talking about. That some form of sculpture or picture will come to life and start speaking. That's totally AI, ChatGPT. Now, I don't know if it's ChatGPT, but it's AI, artificial intelligence. Something. I have another video that I want to show you that literally this guy's talking about this.
He had one video on artificial intelligence in the Bible, and people started acting crazy. So here are a couple of explanations in scriptures. First of all, you have to read the scripture with the right mindset, because many of the men of the Old Testament were given visions about the time that we live in. They were looking into the future at a modern society and did not have the vocabulary to explain what they saw. So they had to use the terms of that day to explain what they were seeing in a vision in our day. For example, the Apostle John was given a vision of warfare in the future. He didn't know what a helicopter was, so he said it looks like a grasshopper. He said its wings roar like the sound of many horses galloping. That's the sound a helicopter would make. He also said that this grasshopper had the ability to shoot snakes that had fire in their tails. Well, that's what a missile would look like to somebody 2,000 years ago who was looking into the future. You can find that in Revelation 9:7-10 and Revelation 9:18-19. In Daniel 12:4, the angel told Daniel that his vision of end-time events would happen when people would move with speed and there would be an explosion of knowledge. An angel could not tell him it would be a time of technology and it would be a time of artificial intelligence, because that did not exist back then. So he had to simply say men will move with speed and there'll be an explosion of knowledge. What he was talking about was a time of technology and the rise of AI. In Revelation 13, John said he was looking 2,000 years in the future. He said he saw men create a statue. He watched them give the statue life, which is electricity, and then the statue had the ability to speak. When a man is looking into the future, he doesn't know that this is a robot. He thinks it's a statue. But what he said about the statue is that when they brought it to life, the statue was the one who gave the command for everyone to receive the mark 666.
That's insane. I 100% agree. I think that that's totally possible. Totally possible. Everyone said it would make sense that when he's having these visions, of course, he doesn't know how to explain all this technology. But we do. We see that's clearly something else. Clearly, as we understand this is what's going on. But we got to be ready, equipped, and be praying and asking God to direct our lives. For sure. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. This one was wild, really in depth, but love and appreciate you all. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you continue to watch here. Trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I know we can do it with your help. So thank you so much for all the love and support. It means the world. Have an amazing day, and God bless.